Hello friends, in today's video I will show you how to create Telegram bot that will parse ASUS online shop and send notifications about new discounts. This can save you hundreds of euros on your shopping or even help you earn around 100 euros by taking similar tasks as a freelancer. Let me demonstrate what this Telegram bot can do. Let's say I'm interested in 46 size Adidas Red. I typed this into the chat and our bot immediately sent us exactly 4 deals that the ASUS online shop has at this moment. Moreover, if we click on the link, we would see that this deal indeed has our desired 46 size Adidas Red. After you've searched for any item, it appears on our products list. However, if you are no longer interested, for example, in 46.7 Adidas Originals, you can delete it. So now in our product list, there are 3 items that our bot is constantly monitoring. And as soon as there is a new discount for one of those items, our bot will send us a message about it. Just like this. And if we, for example, visit the link, we could see that this is indeed product with a discount, and there are a lot of available sizes. Closing the link now. So, make yourself tea, coffee or pasta, press like, subscribe, and save for later. Also, in the description you can find a link to my GitHub, where you can see and download all the code for this tutorial. Now, let's not waste any more time. Firstly, we need to download Python on our computer. You can do it by googling download Python. The official site is python.org, and by clicking on this button, you can download the latest version of Python. After downloading and installing Python, you can check if Python is installed by opening your terminal. Let me zoom it a bit and typing in terminal Python 3 version. On my MacBook, Python version 3.10.10 is currently installed. Moreover, when you have installed Python, it means that on your computer you now have not only the Python language, but also a Python interpreter and Python virtual machine. Since Python files are essentially plain text files written in the Python language, let's open a new text file and write a hello world program. In default Python, we have the print command that outputs whatever is stored inside this command. In our case, we will output the text hello world. Let's close this text file now, change its extension to Py, copy the path to this file, and open it with our Python 3 interpreter by typing in our terminal Python 3, followed by the file path to our new Py, and press enter. So now the computer has opened our file NewPy, translated it to bytecode using the installed Python interpreter, and then executed the bytecode by the Python virtual machine. As a result, it printed hello world in our terminal. Python is well known for its extensive collection of libraries, and let me provide an illustrative example to help you understand how libraries function. I'll begin by creating another Python file. Simply by copying our existing one and renaming it as resources.py. Open this file, and within it, we'll define a function called kilometers to miles. This function will perform a straightforward operation of converting kilometers to miles by multiplying kilometers by 0.62. In Python, we use the def keyword to define functions. In this case, we are defining a function named kilometers to miles, which takes one parameter, kilometers. Inside this function, we calculate the equivalent distance in miles by multiplying the kilometers by 0.62. and then we return the result, which represents the distance in miles. Now, let's close resources.py file and open our main hello world file. And let's import the kilometers to miles function from a module named resources. After that, we'll define the main function, which will take a distance in kilometers from user, send this information to our imported function, and output the result in miles. First things first, within the main function we'll ask the user to input the distance in kilometers. Then we will calculate the result by using our kilometers to miles function with the kilometers variable as an argument. Finally, we will print the result in the following format: value of kilometers variable equals value of miles variable. Now, to execute it, we simply call the main function and run the file using Python 3. Now, if you enter 2, press enter, you may encounter an error. This error is a reminder from the Python interpreter informing us that we can't multiply a string, such as kilometers, by the float value 0.62. To resolve this issue, we need to convert the input to a float number. Second, try to run the code. This time, let's try to convert 3 kilometers and press enter. Now, we didn't get the error, meaning that there are no mistakes in code. Nevertheless, you can now see that Python did replace our variable names with its values. No worries, it could be easily fixed by adding just one letter in the right place. The letter is F, and we should put it before double quotes. When you place an F before the opening double quotes, it tells Python to interpret the string and replace any expressions enclosed in curly braces with their corresponding values. This powerful feature is known as F-string interpolation and gives us a convenient way to construct sentences with parts that change and numbers. Closing the file now. Also, let's clear the terminal to remove previous comments and outputs and run our Python file once more. Let it be 32 kilometers now, and result is 19.84 miles. This example provides a simple illustration of what writing programs in Python is all about. Mainly, it's importing libraries, handling user inputs, and presenting results in a clear and understandable format. Python libraries are like tools in a toolbox. With the right tool, you can build anything, starting with math calculations, building websites, processing images, developing games, analyzing data, and ending with creating artificial intelligence chatbots. The potential of Python is truly boundless, limited only by your imagination and creativity. With this understanding in place, I hope you are now prepared to dive into crafting your first Telegram bot, where we're gonna use 5 different libraries. From now, I'll be using PyCharm, which is a widely recognized integrated development environment. PyCharm offers a wide range of features and tools, making the coding experience more efficient and enjoyable. So let's create a new project. I'm going to locate it on my desktop in folder ASUS YouTube. PyCharm suggests creating a new environment in the same folder, which is perfectly fine. Let's proceed. I'm going to make it full screen and create a new Python file that I will call ASUS YouTube. Additionally, I will create another Python file named config. This config file will have all the sensitive information, such as API keys and database connection details. First and foremost, we require an AP token for our Telegram bot, which I'll define as simply token. To obtain this AP token, open Telegram and search for bot fuzzer. In the menu, choose new bot and provide a name for your bot. In my case, I'll name it ASUS Tutorial YouTube. Then write a username for your bot that should end with bot. I'll name mine ASUS YouTube bot. If the username is available, BotFuzzer will send us an IP key, which I will copy and paste into our config file. Now let's open our main file, zoom in a bit, and import our config file. We'll create a variable named token that is going to be equal to config.token. After importing the config module, we can access the variables defined within it using the module name as a prefix. The dot notation allows us to access attributes which includes variables, functions, or classes within the module. To start our bot, we must import libraries, with the most crucial one being the IOCRAM library. I'm going to import all the libraries we need at once. I'll copy the list of libraries with their versions from GitHub and paste it into my code. Since I don't have all these resources on my PC, I'll need to download them first. I'll copy the command pip install along with the list of libraries and their versions and execute it in the terminal. Once all the libraries are installed, we can proceed with writing the code for our Telegram bot. Let's create our bot, which is a copy of the bot class imported from the IOCRAM library, and token equal to our token. Next, I'll create a dispatcher and name it DP. This dispatcher will be used for handling incoming messages and comments. Now, let's define what our program will do when a user sends the command start. This code is quite standard for message handling used by IOCRAM. You can always find guidelines on how to use libraries by reading their official documentation on their websites. Next, we'll use the await keyword to pause our asynchronous function and use message answer to respond with text hello, followed by user's full name, which we can retrieve from message attributes. Next, we'll handle text messages by specifying inside our message handler that the content type should be set to text. Also, we need to define our function, which we will name handleText. In this function, we'll simply use message answer to send back the same message text that the user has sent. Finally, we will include the standard Python code if name equals main, which checks if the script is the main program. If it is, we'll employ the standard code from the IOCRAM library to continually check for new messages from Telegram servers and to skip updates that our bot has already processed. Now, let's run the code. The code is up and running. Let's open a Telegram chat with our bot and press start. The bot replies with hello Serhiy Kolodych, and if we send hello bot, it will echo our message. Pretty cool, right? But what if, instead of repeating messages, our bot could search the ASUS website for discounted products and send us the links? To make this happen, we need to inspect the ASUS website first. Having done some research, I found that by searching for a product like Adidas Originals with discounts only, in the developer tools that you can open by right-clicking and choosing Inspect element, within the Network tab, after loading more products, you'll find a specific URL request. If we open it, we will see data in JSON format. I've copied this text and pasted it into a JSON viewer where all this data is beautifully displayed in a table on the right. Here, you can see information about the next 72 products for the Adidas Originals query. Let's copy this URL request and integrate it into our program, which we will call query. Among other parameters in this URL request, there is an attribute called limit, initially set to 72. After experimenting, I found that the maximum allowable limit is 200. So I'll set the limit to 200, meaning we can receive a JSON table with a maximum of 200 products at once. Instead of offset being equal to 72, I'll insert a variable called offset, which we'll use later. For our query Adidas Plus Originals, I'll insert a variable called query ASOS. Query ASOS will be equal to our user's message text, but we will replace all the spaces with a plus sign, and our offset will be set to 0 for now. To enable our program to make an HTTP request to a specified URL, receive a response from the server, and parse response data as JSON, we will use the request library. According to the request documentation, we need to initialize our session first. So I'll create a session called s, which will be equal to request.session. The response will be equal to s.get, URL will be equal to query, and headers will be equal to headers. Headers are usually sent along with an HTTP request to inform the server how it should handle the request. So I will create a dictionary called headers, which will have two key attributes: accept, indicating the expected response type, */ stands for accept all in this case, and user agent, which acts as a digital passport for your browser, is going to be the same as my browser. So I'm going to open my developer tools, find value of my user agent, copy it, and paste it into my code. After initializing the session and receiving a response, we will convert the response into JSON by setting results equal to response.json. Now let's create a variable called item count that will be responsible for informing us whether there are any products to the query we sent. We can find the key containing the number of products in our JSON viewer. In the case of Adidas Originals, there are 802 products, and the key to get this value is item count. So let's copy it and paste it in our code, and display a message saying, I found value of item count, discounts for message text. Next, we will get our products by setting it equal to results.getProducts. I'll create a loop for product in products, and for each product we send, we will increase our send variable by 1. And let's output all the details for this deal. I'll use the await message answer command to send a formatted message that includes the value of our send variable and the product details. To access the product name, I'll use the name key from the products dictionary. Let's not to forget to initialize the send variable with an initial value of 0. Moving on, let's add a link to the products page, which we will construct by combining the domain with the partial URL we got from our JSON data. Next, we will include the product price. The price has a few attributes, but we are interested in the text value, which can be found inside the current or previous attributes. So in our code, let's get price. Then inside price, let's get previous. And then get text. The same for the current price. After that, I will add the query that we use to search for these products. Once we send this message, we will check if we've already sent more than 3 messages. If we have, we will ask the user if they want to see more. And exit our for loop by using break statement. If we haven't sent more than 3 messages, we will simply move on. Where else pass is essentially a placeholder, indicating that nothing needed to be done in this case. With this code in place, we can run our program. Open our chat and send a query, such as Nike Air Red. And as you can see, our bot did its job, found 18 discounts for our query, and was sending us product details until sent variable was less than 3. And since you can see 4 products, you can understand that in Python language, 3 is not more than 3. But 4 definitely is. So after sending 4 products, bot sent us message show more. And now waiting for new messages from us. Just to double check, let's visit the ASUS website and search for Nike Air Red ourselves. Making sure to show only products with discounts. And here you go, the same 18 products. Now return to our chat and test if the link we provided works. And yes, it does. But what about more command? Well, it's not. That's because we haven't written a message handler for the more command. Let's do that now. I'm going to duplicate the message handler for the start command and modify it for the more command. To make the more command work, we need 3 essential pieces of information. First, the item we are searching for. Second, the offset value. And an optional third element, which is the order number, to keep track of the products that the bot has already sent us. So, I'll create 3 global variables: more what, offset, and order number. These variables will be accessible and modifiable within the scope of this function. However, we need to create these variables outside the more function as well. So I'll copy and paste the code just below our headers dictionary. The more function will essentially repeat the same actions as before, but with an offset increased by 4 products that have already been sent. So I'll copy the code we've already written and place it inside the more function. In this case, we'll get the query ASUS from the more what variable. The offset value is already available as a global variable, so I'll remove it. Instead of variable sent, we'll use order number, so I'll rename it accordingly. And remember to subtract the offset value from the order number, since for the more function the order number is already greater than 3. Once we've sent more than 3 products, we will update all the global variables. More what variable stays the same, so we don't need to update it. The offset value will increase by 4, and we won't need to update the order number since it automatically increments each time we send products. Our move function is now ready to be used, but before launching it, we need to set values for our global variables. We will do this after sending the show more message, so I'll paste it here. The more what variable will be equal to message text. The offset will be set to 4, and the order number will be equal to send. However, in Python, for global variables, you can declare and assign values in one step. You should first declare them as global, and then set their values in separate statements. What I am doing now. Now we are all set. Let's run our code. Hold on. The Python interpreter is telling me there is a syntax error. Specifically, our offset variable is used before declaring it. So let's see what we can do. And the solution is pretty easy. Let's delete it, since we won't use the offset value the first time we search for products. And in our URL query, let's set offset to 0. Second try to run the code. Success. Let's search for Adidas Air Green this time. And as you can see, our move function works just fine. But you know what? Since our move function performs the same actions but with an offset value plus 4, let's simplify our code even more. When a user searches for something, we will just use the more function with an offset value of 0. I'm going to remove this code and declare global variables. I'll set more what equals to message text, offset equals to 0, and order number equals to 0 as well. Then we'll call the move function like this. Now let's add a few lines of code to the move function. It will check if the offset is equal to 0. If it is, we will send the user a message informing them of how many products the bot found. Else, pass, meaning if the offset is any other number, then we will just send 4 more products. That's it. Let's run the code. And search for Nike Air Blue this time. Everything works just the same, but we've avoided repeating the same code in different parts of the program. So, let's open one of the deals and see if we have our size. Unfortunately, we don't. Let's modify our bot to send us only discounts for products that have our size. What I also found is that when you choose your size, for example 44, there is a new attribute added to the URL request. For every different size, it has a different number that I will call size ID. For example, when you choose size 44, size ID is 71. Let's copy it and add this attribute to our URL request query at the end. So depending on our input size, I'll paste the relevant size ID here. Meanwhile, size ID variable will be equal to the result of a size replace function, where we'll pass our input size variable. The input size variable will be taken from the more what input, from the first symbol to the comma index. And I will remove spaces using the strip function. find the comma index, I will use the find function, and inside it I will put our comma symbol. So let's create a size replace function with a size variable that we will pass as an argument. I will also create a dictionary called sizesdb that will list the sizes as keys and size ID values as values. For instance, we already know that the 44th size is equal to 71. And I will add L size, which will be equal to, well, let's go back to ASOS site and choose size L. And in URL address, copy its relevant size ID and paste it as a value to the key L in our sizesdb dictionary. Now I will write the remaining code. If our size variable is inside sizesdb dictionary, then final ID will be equal to the relevant value from our sizesdb dictionary, where the key is equal to our size variable. And let's return our final ID. Else colon, we will return nothing. Let's scroll through and see if we forgot anything. It seems like everything is fine. Now let's run the code. And let's search for L size, Puma winter jacket. Our bot found 2 deals. Let's check one of them. And yes, it works. What about the 44th size Puma suede? Let's check. Yes, it works too. And if we search for a product without specifying a size, for example, Puma suede green, it works as well. Since I already created a dictionary for most sizes, I'm just going to copy and paste it into our project. Next, I'm going to add the ability for our bot to store all the products it has already sent us in an SQL database. So, let's open our config file and add engine token to access the database. I'm using PlanetScale database, which you can use for free after registration and adding your credit card details. You can click on New Database to create a new one, but I will use my already created database. To get the engine token details for your database, click on the Connect button, where you'll find all the data you need to merge it in one line. So it will look like this. Here you can see that I already have 6 tables, and now I'm going to create a new one. To do that, I'll open the web console. Then I'll open my GitHub, link in the description. Copy and paste the SQL statement for creating a table named ASOS. But since I already have an ASOS table, I'll name this table ASOS YouTube. Press Enter, and our database is created. To see all the rows of this table, we can write select all from ASOS YouTube. And press Enter. Here it is, our table, which currently has 0 rows. Since I'm already using this database for my other projects, I'll use my config file, which already has the engine token data inside. Now let's open our code and create a variable engine token that will be equal to our engine token from the config. Next, let's create our engine, which is a copy of the create engine class we have already imported from the SQL Alchemy library. To make our engine work, we need to add SSL related configuration, which I've just copied from PlanetScale Connect details. Now, let's write code so that after every product we send, the bot will write its product details in the database. First, we establish a database connection using the engine we previously created. Our query for the database is going to be text appstring insert into ASUS YouTube. Let me go back to my database and copy its keys, paste it here, and delete everything that is not our key names, where the last ones will be refresh date, previous price, current price, and link. The values are going to be the value of message.fromUser.id for our Telegram ID key, comma. For user input key, we will insert value of what variable, comma. For our product ID key, we will insert value of product ID from ASUS website. That is going to be product.getID, if I'm not mistaken. Let me come back to our JSON viewer. And yes, we can access product's ID by its ID key from the product's dictionary. Then comes value of size ID variable that we have here. Let's move the text that we don't see to the next line. After size ID, comma, let's move to the next line. And move the closing circle brackets associated with the values keys to the next line as well. Next value for our refresh date key will be value of current date variable. And let's not to forget to assign the current date variable a value, which will be equal to datetime.now string format time function, inside which we will write our desired time format. After refresh date, we have previous price. So let's create a variable previous price, which will be equal to product.getPrice.getPrevious.getText. Let's do the same for the current price. And also create a variable link, which will be equal to the ASUS domain plus product.getURL. Now, let's continue writing our query and insert current price and link to. In the last line, we are going to execute our query using our engine, which we've declared as con. And let's run the code now. However, there is an error that says there is no module named PyMySQL. This must mean that we haven't installed it yet. Let me check our pip install statement real quick. And yes, PyMySQL is missing. No problem, let's install it now. To do that, open your terminal and write pip install PyMySQL. Now, let's use the pip freeze command to see what version of PyMySQL we just downloaded. Its version is 1.1.0. So, let me copy it, come back to my GitHub, add it to my ASUS file, and save changes, so you won't face this problem. Now, let's try to run the code again. This time, it says we wrote the wrong arguments when creating the engine. Let's see. Yes, indeed. Let's correct this mistake too, and run the code again. Now it works. Let's search for the Puma Suede in black. And it doesn't work. After a bit of research, I found the mistake. The error was in my config file, which, if you remember, I copied from another project where the Telegram token IP was for a different Telegram bot. No wonder our bot didn't reply to us with anything, as it was another bot running at that moment. Silly me. Anyway, let's continue debugging our bot. I'm going to run the code again and search for the 43rd size of Adidas. This time our bot sent us one product and then stopped working. Let's check if the bot managed to insert this product into our database. To do that, let's go to our PlanetScale web console and type select all from ASOS YouTube. Press enter. As you can see, Nasset was inserted into the database, which means we made a mistake in our database query. Let's see what error it was. Well, I don't see it, but no problem. Let's ask ChatGPT if it can find the mistake. To do that, let's copy all this error text and paste it into ChatGPT. ChatGPT replied that this error suggests there is a mismatch between the number of columns specified in your insert statement and the number of values provided in the values list. Thanks for the explanation. And as the saying goes, trust but verify. So let's count how many keys and how many values we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 keys. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 values. And yes, at the beginning, there is an ID key that we don't need to mention, since we defined ID as auto-increment. This means the database itself generates and assigns a unique value to the ID field automatically when a new record is inserted. Let's run the code again and search this time for the 42nd size of Adidas Originals. Well, this time the bot sent us all 4 products. Now let's check if all these products are inserted into our database. Wow, they are! The next step is to create a command called products, which will output all the unique user inputs from our database. So let's copy the message handler for the mo command and modify it for products. First, let's connect to our database using the engine and connect as con. Our query will be select distinct user input, where distinct is a synonym for unique, from ASOS YouTube, where Telegram ID equals message.fromUser.id. In the second part of the query, where acts as a filter, allowing only the results that meet this specific requirement to be returned. In the end, we should receive only unique user inputs, and only for the user who sends this command. So the result will be equal to the result after executing this query. Now let's create a list called user inputs, which will be equal to an opening square brackets, followed by row 0 for row in result, and then closing square brackets. This seemingly complex line is, in fact, quite simple to understand. In our case, row represents a single row of information, and 0 signifies the first item in that row. For row in result is like examining a collection of these rows one by one. Therefore, we are iterating through each row in result and extracting the first item from each row. These first items are then compiled into our user input list. Now, let's check if user inputs exist. We will start by outputting our first message as a heading, stating unique user inputs. And we will also include the number of inputs, which will be simply the length of this list. Next, let's create a variable I and assign its value to 0. We'll use I to count the user inputs via output. The next line will be a loop for user input and user inputs, where we will obtain the most recent refresh date for each user input. The query will be a formatted string, select refresh date from Asos YouTube, where user input equal user input, and we will sort it by refresh date in descending order. This way, the latest date will appear at the top of our results. So last date will be equal to the result of executing this query, followed by fetch1 function to retrieve only one row, since we only need the latest date. We will use square brackets 0 to extract the first value in that row, which will be a datetime value. We will convert it into a string using the string format time function, and this time we will display only the day, months, hours, and minutes. Additionally, we will increase our variable I by 1 and output the result in a formatted string, the value of variable I, followed by a colon, last discount was, and inserted value of last date. We will also add an else section to handle the situation where there are no user inputs. In that case, we will display the message: no user inputs found. Add 1 by writing size, product name. Let's run the code and check if the products command works. Now, let's add another product. For example, I type 41 Nike Green and press enter. So, now if we write the command products, the bot should respond with 2 unique user inputs. It should show our earlier entry for Adidas Originals, which we added before, and Nike Green, which we searched for just now. However, the date format doesn't look quite right. Let's correct it. The mistake was using uppercase letters for the day and month. Let's make them lowercase. It should solve the problem. Let's run the code again to verify that it displays the date correctly. Yes, now it appears as desired. So, at this point we can insert product details into the database. But let's also add an option to delete products from the database that we are no longer interested in. To delete one of the user inputs, we will create a condition. If the message that the user sends starts with delete, we will take the user input mentioned in their message and delete it. If the message doesn't start with delete, we will proceed as we did before. Just like we did with the comma index earlier, this time we will find where our user input starts. The position start will be the location where message text contains colon plus 2 positions. The position end of our user input will be the start of the phrase last discount was minus 2 positions. The user input that we want to delete will be from message.text, starting at the position start and ending at the position end. We will strip any extra characters just in case. Then we will output this user input and a message indicating that it was deleted successfully. Now let's connect to our database. The query is going to be delete from Asos YouTube, where Telegram ID is equal to message.fromUser.id, and user input is equal to the value of the user input variable. Let's run the code and check. First, let's see what we currently have in our database. We have 6 rows with 2 unique user inputs: Adidas Originals and Nike Green. Now, let's open our chat. Copy the user input we want to delete and write delete. Then we can paste the user input we want to delete and press enter. and our bot says it was deleted. Let's check our products again. But it wasn't deleted. Let's check our database. It wasn't deleted indeed. Now let's open our code and try to understand why. I see why. This is because I forgot to execute the query. Let's run the code again. This time, the bot did everything exactly as I wanted. Let's double check. Yes, Adidas Originals was deleted. Great. Now, let's come back to our code and add a sizes command that will output all the sizes that we currently have. So the user would know what sizes they can look for. Search works for these sizes. And on the next line, we are going to call the size replace function and pass it a string. For example, sizes db. Let's copy the string and modify our code for the size replace function. If the size is equal to the sizes db string, then sizes text is going to be equal to a list of our keys separated by commas. Now let me explain how this line of code works. I'll start from the end. Keys is a method that extracts all the keys from the sizes db dictionary. Map is a function that converts all these keys to strings. Join takes all the strings from the previous step and puts them together into one big string. The comma inside quotes represents how each of these strings should be separated in the final result. Now about the return statement. After the return statement is executed, any code or statements that come after it within the same function will not be executed. So you don't have to worry about the code below. It won't be executed. Let's run the code. Write the sizes command. And as you can see, we've got all our sizes written in one string, separated by commas. Let's check once again if everything works. This time, let's search for XL size Adidas winter jacket. The mock command works too. Now let's check if all 12 products for our Adidas winter jacket were added to the database. We had 2 rows in our database, we added 12, so now it should have 14 rows. Perfect. Let's come back to our chat, write the sizes command. Sorry, I meant products. Now let's try to delete night green. Deleted successfully. In our products, only the Adidas winter jacket remains now. We've almost finished our bot. There is only one thing left to do. And that is to make this bot continuously check for new discounts and send them to us if we haven't seen them yet. For this purpose, I'm going to create a dictionary called user tasks to store our tasks. Let's modify our start command, so when we start the bot with the start command, it will begin sending updates. Firstly, we will check if message.fromUser.id is not in user tasks. This checks if the user ID is not already in the user tasks dictionary. If this condition is true, it means the user is not in the list of users with tasks. Or we will check if not user tasks, opening square brackets, message.fromUser.id, closing square brackets. This part checks if the user is in the list user tasks, but has no tasks assigned to them. It confirms that the user exists in the list but has no ongoing tasks. So if neither of these is true, we will inform the user that the bot has started and that they will receive updates with discounts from now on. Then we will create a task for the user with the start sending updates function, passing the user's ID as an argument. If either of the initial conditions is true, it means the user is already in the list with assigned tasks. In that case, we will output that the bot is already running, and if the user wants to stop, they can use the stop command. Now let's create our async function start sending updates, and call the user ID that we are passing as chat ID. In the next line, let's create a loop while chat ID is in user tasks, and there is an active task to be performed for this user. We will send updates for our chat ID and pause for 5 seconds in the loop. Let's not forget to create a stop command to stop sending updates. I'll copy the message handler for start and change it to stop. We will delete not from our conditions and change or to end. These two conditions should ensure that the user's ID is both engaged in the system and currently has an active task or process assigned to them. If both of these conditions are true, we will stop the ongoing task for this user by using the cancel command. Then we remove the user's entry from the user's task data structure with the pop function, inside which we mention our user ID. We will inform the user that the bot has stopped and that they will no longer receive updates. They can press start if they need updates. Also, if the user isn't running any tasks, we will inform them that the bot is not running and advise them to use start to initiate it. Now let's create an async function called sendUpdates and pass it a user ID parameter. We will output a message saying that an update is here. Since there is no direct user message to reply to in this particular scenario, we will use bot.sendMessage function. This function allows us to send updates and notifications to the user without the need for the user to message bot first. Let's run the code and check if sending updates works. So, let's type start. The bot is started and simultaneously sends us the first update. 5 seconds later we should receive another update. Here it is. Now let's stop our bot. If we try to stop a bot that is already stopped, we will receive a message that the bot is not running. Let's start it again, and it's updating again. So everything works. Let's stop running the code and finish our sendUpdate function to actually check the ASOS website for the products we are interested in and send us deals instead of just text. First things first, we need to know what products our user is interested in. For that reason, I'm just gonna copy our products command code and modify it a bit. If there are products, then we will have them. But if there are no products, hence the else statement, we will send a message to the user saying that there are no products to update. Let's modify our code a bit and replace message.fromUser.id with the user ID variable that we passed as a parameter for our sendUpdates function. Continuing to modify our code, if there are user inputs, then we are not gonna send a message to the user, so let's delete it. Instead, for every user input in user inputs, we are gonna connect to the database and select size ID, where Telegram ID is gonna be equal to our user ID, and user input is our user input. Since we are now selecting size ID, let's rename last date to size ID that is gonna be equal to the first item in that row. Let's output our user input and size ID just to check if everything works so far. Running the code. And pressing start. The bot started, connected to the database, found our XL Adidas winter jacket input, and also outputted size ID. Let's stop updates and add another product to our list. Let it be 46, Nike Sport Blue. No products. Let's change it to L size Nike Sport Blue. Now we should have two unique user inputs inside products. Let's start sending updates and check if our bot is gonna see both of these products. And yes, both of our products and their size IDs are here. Great. So let's stop the bot. Let's stop the code running. After retrieving this information, instead of outputting it, let's search for these items. For that, I'm gonna copy the code we already have delete lines that we don't need, and instead of move_what, we are gonna use the user input variable. Offset is gonna be equal to 0, query ISO stays the same, and size ID stays here too. Then, if there are no products for this query, item count variable is gonna be 0. So, if item count is equal to 0, that must mean that on the ASUS website, currently no products matching our query. So let's use the continuous statement that tells the program to immediately jump back to the beginning of our loop and start the next iteration. Let's add another condition. If item count more than 200, then let's output more than 200 items to update, delete it first, and send this user input. But if item count is less than 200, let's proceed with checking each of these items. We are gonna keep order number, so let's create order number and assign it to 0 every time we get a new product. Let's also declare our global variables. So in case there are more than 4 updates, we will give the user the option to see them all. Now, for every product that we got from ASUS, let's connect to our database and check if this product already exists in our database. Meaning, our bot already sent us a message with these product details. So the query is gonna be select one from ASUS YouTube where Telegram ID equals to user ID and product ID is equal to product.getID. Meanwhile, variable product ID is gonna be equal to product.getID. The result of this query, let's store in variable existing product. And if this product doesn't exist in our database, then we are gonna output it. So let's paste our remaining code here. We are gonna count this product, get its previous price, current price, and link, and output this product details. And instead of await message answer, we are gonna use bot.sendMessage. Instead of more_what, it's gonna be user input. And instead of message.fromUser.id, we are gonna use variable user ID. Instead of more_what, it's gonna be user input. Product ID variable here, and since we are counting from 0 and there is no offset, let's delete offset variable here. And instead of await message answer, we are gonna use bot.sendMessage. Offset is gonna be equal to 4. And more_what is gonna be equal to user input. Let's delete all these empty rows and run the code. Starting the bot. And here you go. Here are the deals that are not in our database yet. And the bot is sending us new updates every 5 seconds. So let's stop it. delete all the messages that we don't need to be sent, run the code again, start the bot, and no updates. This must be because our bot already sent us all deals, and there are no new ones. But if we check how many products we have in our ASOS YouTube table, and then delete the last two of them, then the next time our bot is going to make an update, it should send us these two deals. And yeah, here you go. 2 deals for Elna Export Blue. The prices of items we deleted were 40 and 1050. And if we check the deals bot sent us, it has the same prices. So it must be our products that we just deleted. Meaning our bot is really sending us only the deals that we haven't seen yet. And here you can see that all other functions of the bot work too. So let's close our code and PyCharm. And since we stopped running our bot code on our PC, it means that our bot is not gonna work anymore. Possible solutions are to keep your PC running all the time or use virtual servers. Let me show you how you can upload this code to a server and make your bot working 24/7. I personally use Zomra hosting. Here is their official website. After you log in, you can go to virtual servers and choose one of the many servers that Zomra has. I started using Zomra almost a year ago, chose the cheapest plan. It is €561 per month for me at the moment of recording this video, and I am fully satisfied with it. After you have your own server, you can access it by its IP address. So I'm gonna copy it and open my GitHub page, where I created a server part.txt file with instructions on how to set up your server. First things first, we will access our server by writing in our console ssh space your username, usually it's root, and your IP address, and press enter. Then enter your password, and here you go, we are inside our server now. If you type Python 3 -- version, the server gonna respond with Python version installed on this server. And as you can see, it's 3.8.10 for me. If you don't have it installed, you can install it by writing pip install python. The next step in my instructions is to create a folder for your code and other resources. You can create a folder using commands, but I prefer using FTP clients. Currently I'm using FileZilla. You can connect to your server using your IP address, username, and password. After successful connection to the server, on the right side you should see files on your server. On the left side, it's my computer files. So let's right-click on the server part side and create a new folder that I'm gonna name as ASOS YouTube. Now let's open this folder and upload our files here. The next step in our instruction is to create a virtual environment and install libraries. So I'm gonna copy this command and paste it into my terminal. The virtual environment is now created inside the venv folder. The next step is to activate our virtual environment. Now you can see the venv word here, which means that our virtual environment is activated. And everything that we will install now will be saved in our venv folder. So let's copy this command and install all our libraries. Let's check if they are installed using the pip list command. And here you can see that we have all our libraries installed. Let's clear the screen and deactivate our virtual environment. Done. The next step is to create a new service file that will keep our code running all the time. Open in the system folder creating a new system file that we are gonna call asos.youtube.service. Right-click on this file and choose Edit. Copying and pasting the text, closing the file. FileZilla offers us to upload this edited file to the server. We press yes. The last step is to start our service. You can use the start or restart command for this. Let's open our bot. Let's press start. Let's test it a bit. Yahoo! Everything works. This is the end of this tutorial video. Thank you for watching. So once again, all the code you can find on my GitHub. The link is in the description. Please don't forget to press like, subscribe, and write comments if you have any questions or suggestions about what you would like to see in my next videos. Take care, never give up, and see ya!